it's tough for me to kind of get perspective sometimes. And so it's like, okay, there's nothing past today, and all I've caused is pain, and I'm a burden on all these people. And with my drinking and all that stuff, that's just going to be a burden on my kids. So I should just end this all so they can be happy.
Hey there, my name is Sean, and this is Suicide Noted. On this podcast, I talk with suicide attempt survivors so that we can hear their stories. Every year around the world, millions of people try to take their own lives, and we almost never talk about it. We certainly don't talk about it enough. And when we do talk about it, many of us, including me, we are not very good at it. So, one of my goals with this podcast is to have more conversations, and hopefully better conversations with attempt survivors, in large part to help more people in more places, hopefully, maybe, feel a little less shitty and a little less alone. If you are a suicide attempt survivor and you'd like to talk, please reach out. hello@suicidenoted.com, on Facebook or Twitter/X @suicidenoted. Of course, you can reach out for any reason you'd like. I'd love to hear from our listeners and our supporters. As you probably know, you can check the show notes to learn more about the podcast, including our membership. Huge thanks to those of you who support us in that way. But of course, I appreciate everybody's support, however you support. So thank you. Finally, we are talking about suicide on this podcast, and we don't hold back. So please take that into account before you listen or as you listen. But I do hope you listen, because there is so much to learn. Today, I am talking with Nick. Nick lives in Finland, and he is a suicide attempt survivor. Hey, Nick.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah. Let me just open up my notebook, because, I write some stuff down as we're talking. Like, for example, Nick tried to kill himself. Ask him about that. Stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sure. Basic stuff.
Your standard conversation between two guys. Or,
See how it goes.
I don't know how you feel, but life's a little overrated.
Yeah, I mean, it comes and goes, like some days it's like, okay, this is great. But then, I mean, for me, yeah, I'm in that place where it's like, well, fuck it. I can just, I'm just here. You assign meaning to life. And I mean, from my experiences, it's like, yeah, there's no fucking meaning. I can just kind of do these things, and that's kind of where I'm trying to get to. It's like, appreciate the things that I have in my life right now. Let it unfold and let it continue.
For our listening audience who will not be seeing you, I don't think, a couple things that Nick has in his life are very cool glasses, the kind of glasses that are like they're clear everywhere. I can see just barely on this red shirt that Nick is donning. It says FAT, F-A-T, and it might be an acronym or some kind of band, or what is that?
Yeah, no, it's Fat Records. It's a punk record label.
Are you a punk?
I guess I used to be, yeah, or identified as it for sure. So yeah, I went to a lot of punk shows and, getting in mosh pits and circle pits and knocking people over, and but I was always pretty straight laced growing up. But yeah, for where I was from, like punk music, somehow that's what I kind of got into because it was silly and you didn't have to take it seriously. And then some bands like really talked about some good stuff. So
I feel like I would have been a pretty good punk.
Yeah, why is that?
I don't know. I feel like I have the what's the word? Constitution, or the just wanting to get shit out, but also appreciating depth, and there's a community there. And
yeah, no, I mean, I definitely identify that as like, kind of growing up. Like I grew up in this pretty rural place, and so it was like I never felt like I really belonged anywhere. It's like from this small town, and like everybody was like everybody seemed like a jock or somebody. They had things going on, and I just had a couple friends, and yeah, and everybody listened to like heavy metal music or some other kind of music, and for some reason punk music kind of felt good. But then I started going to shows, and I still felt like this is bigger than me, and this is not quite where I belong because people were more into it, and I'm just from like this rural town.
Yeah.
Then as I kind of got older, I was like, okay, yeah, this is cool. And then you can let go. You can let go and just kind of get thrown around and get kicked around. So
I have a question.
Sure.
And a comment. The comment is, thanks for being here and talking with me.
Yeah. No, thanks. Thanks for having me.
The question is, you live in Finland, right?
Yes, I do.
Why is it that if I were to, like, if you didn't tell me you were from Finland, you have I want to say either no accent or a tiny accent, like tiny, if any.
Yeah, no, I'm not from Finland. I just live here. So I'm from the US.
Oh, okay, that makes total sense now. Hold
Yeah.
up, hold up. Where are you from?
I'm from Minnesota.
Oh, so you were moshing in Minnesota.
Yeah, in Minneapolis.
Is moshing in Minnesota? Did we already find the memoir title? No, maybe. Okay. Because no, look, if you were in England, if you were in Mexico, if you were in even Japan, I'd say you rarely hear people, and at least I don't, who moved to Finland from the US. I'm sure it happens fairly often. I just don't hear about it, Mary. So how did you get there?
How did I get here? Work originally. So this company that I worked for, I heard we were getting Finland as a client. And so I lobbied to come and work on the project.
How long have you been in Finland?
The company moved me back to the US, and then I decided I wanted to come back here with my, at the time, my wife and my kids and stuff. And so I quit that job and then I came back. And so I think I've been here about almost 7.5 years, 8 years.
So you live in the capital of Helsinki.
Yeah, I live in Helsinki. Yeah.
Maybe we should start a podcast about, like, call it two white dudes talk. No, that wouldn't make sense. Finland noted in English. Like there'd be like
Uh,
seven listeners, but only most of them would be like one, like they listen for a few minutes. There'd be one or two people in the world who listen really every week.
yeah. Well, I mean,
Plug that.
everybody's got a podcast now. So
Everybody's got a podcast now.
no, but
For
I'm
what
I'm
it's
happy I
worth,
found yours.
that's a great segue. So how and why, two-part question, how and why did you find the podcast?
Yeah, no, I was in a place where I was not doing well. I was dealing with depression and I was trying everything, and I was listening to different podcasts and things like this. And one that I listened to, I don't know if you've heard it, it's called The Hilarious World of Depression.
Hmm.
And they changed the name to Depression Mode. Yeah, so it's really, really good. But basically they tackle depression issues and with a bit of humor, which is something I really, really liked. It's not like this doctor's clinical, here's what you should do stuff. And then when I was really deep in in rumination of stuff of, suicidal ideation, I was finding these self-help things and spiritual things, which are nice. But then I think I found yours and it was just more straightforward people's stories of, oh, no, here's how you should do it. Here's this program I was in. It was like, no, here's my life experience. So I think I was just searching for it. Yeah.
I'm glad you found it.
No, me too. Me too. It definitely helped me out just to know like, okay, shit, this stuff that I'm thinking of and going through is not unique to me.
Yeah, I've learned that, and this isn't particularly original thought here, but having a conceptual understanding that people are going through something versus hearing it are not the same experiences, you know? You know that people are going through it, but to
Yeah,
hear it is different.
exactly. To hear it from somebody's personal story and kind of you connect with that person on the podcast, and it's stuff that maybe you've thought of, but you couldn't say to a friend or you couldn't say to anybody, even though like I'm pretty open with my experiences and stuff, and like, yeah, I mean, I had friends who, we would talk about like, yeah, I want to jump in front of that metro. It went from kind of joking to when it hit hard, it was like, no, this is really what I'm thinking. But then to hear these patterns of people, especially on your podcast, and kind of repeating the same things, or they've gone through the therapy and they go through these ups and downs, and maybe it's like a death in the family or a divorce or something like this. This is what triggers all this stuff. And so for me to
Mhm.
see like, okay, wait, even though I'm in this depressed state and I do have these suicidal ideations and this rumination, it's a part of this human experience that some people take. So it was
Mhm.
good to hear that, especially from the way that your podcast presents it, man. It hit me in the right area. It felt very punk rock. It was like
Oh.
you're doing it the way that you want to do it. So
At the end of the day, I really am a punk.
yeah,
Do punks identify as punks, or they let other people call them punks?
I don't know anymore, man.
For me to say, actually deep down I'm a punk sounds weird.
Yeah, yeah. I would never say I was when I was a kid, I was a punk because I didn't want to identify with anything. But that's the music I listened to, and those, I went to those kind of situations. It's like do it yourself, do it your own way. Don't give a shit what anybody else thinks you should do.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. I do actually think I'm doing it that way. And there's some risk to that. I might have to rebrand everything with the word punk in it, though. I don't give a fuck. Great punk guy from Minnesota. What was life like for you growing up?
I mean, in retrospect, like everything was pretty good. Like I had friends, I had things to do. I kind of felt like as a kind of maybe out of place, but I think that's just kind of how I was and kind of independent. kind of looking at it now, the patterns in my life, I think I started to build things up with humor and sarcasm, and so that's really what kind of got me through, and that's how I related to things and to people. But there wasn't anything, bad or anything growing up really, but just this general, I can think of times when I was just like, maybe lonely and just feeling like I didn't belong. And so maybe those things are an indication of maybe just depression or something bigger in my life and in my family, kind of like this generational stuff.
Your family Nordic? I mean, that is common in Minnesota.
Yeah. So my family has like Finnish roots and stuff, so that's kind of like
Oh.
what brought me back kind of here. That was that interest in that.
So that doesn't
But
make you a Viking, right?
no, no, Vikings are from Norway.
God
Come on.
damn it. I got to do my research.
But I think maybe the pillaging and the
Right.
plundering and stuff like that. That I can
Yeah.
I can yeah, I'm pretty a physical guy, so I think I could
You
raid
can
a
roll
village if needed.
you can roll with plundering and pillaging.
Yeah, of course.
That's a pretty quick way to get your ass kicked out of Finland though if you start ransacking villages in the suburban Helsinki.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, they clamp down on things pretty quick.
Yeah, I bet they do. How does it roll through teenage years into where this starts to gain some momentum given what we're talking about?
Yeah, through my teenage years, like all I knew is I wanted to get out of where I was, like I didn't want to live in that town. I wanted to go see the world. And so like in high school and stuff, I was pretty straight-laced. And then in college, that's when I started like drinking and stuff like this. And I think it was this, social lubrication. And then kind of through my 20s and stuff, that's when I met what would be my wife, and we kind of came together and we did a lot of drinking. There was a lot of drinking as looking back, there was quite a bit of alcohol involved. So that might have been, I remember in situations where, because I was maybe kind of shy, so then to use alcohol to be more outgoing, to be funnier, and also that's just kind of what the
Hmm.
everybody was doing.
Yeah, there's a bar on every fucking corner. I mean,
Oh, exactly. Like, what else
uh,
do you do? You're
right.
21. You're like, let's go check out these bars and like, let's go find the dirtiest bars in Minneapolis.
This alcohol thing is an interesting thing that, because if you would said you were doing a lot of coke, like, okay, but you had to be somewhat careful and private about that. In most, yeah, I know there are clubs that don't give a shit, whatever. But in alcohol, it's endorsed fully by everybody everywhere, public, private, government.
No, and I mean it's like it's a way of relating to people. For better for worse. Like, oh, what are you gonna do? Let's get a beer and then we'll see what we're gonna do. So you have a beer, and like for me, like I liked drinking, and I
Yeah.
could drink a lot, and so
Are you a big guy? Because
no,
you,
not really.
okay.
Like, what do you? No, I'm
And
a
I
little
don't
guy.
need to, I do not need to see your body, Nick. Nick just stood up to show me he's an average to slightly, average build. But God, no, we don't do that on this podcast, my friend. That's for OnlyFans. Are you familiar with that site?
Oh, of course, yes, I am.
Yeah, that's a different thing. I don't
That's a
do,
different thing.
yeah. The reason I asked is big people, because I couldn't
Mhm.
tell from when you were sitting, they can usually drink more.
Yeah, but I mean, like for me, it was something. It was yeah, with my friends and stuff, and in your 20s, that's what you do.
100%.
Looking back too, it's like it was definitely a part of like my family structure and stuff too. That's, we get together, start having some beers. No big deal. You
No
know?
big deal.
Yeah,
Some people stop, some people manage, and other people become raging alcoholics. Really?
exactly. Yeah, for
Which
sure.
one?
For
Which
sure.
one were you?
I don't think I was a raging alcoholic, but I know I definitely drank way too much. As I got into my 30s, I got this job, and the company I worked for was definitely an alcohol culture. If you go, everybody's going to go out, and whoever can drink and drink and drink and hang out with the boss, they're the people who got promotions and stuff.
Uh-huh. See, that I was thinking about that when you said that earlier. My brain went to like I lived in Japan. I had some friends that were in Korea because I was doing like ESL stuff, and those were two really big places to do that. That easy to get jobs, paid pretty well. It's actually a problem if you don't drink. It's not a problem, but like you just said, there's social capital. And I had a friend that didn't drink, and he'd go out, and it was awkward for him.
Yeah, like yeah, if somebody's like, "Oh, let's get a beer," and it's like, "Oh no, I'll have a water," or something. It's like, "Oh, what's going on?"
Totally. By the way, raging alcoholic didn't mean you drank more. It means you're a punk. You're a raging punk who happens to drink.
Well, no, and that's the thing too. I remember, yeah, going to shows and just drinking, drinking, drinking. Then you just slam, and everybody's drunk, and everybody's smiling and happy because everybody's having a good time.
Yeah, and you chase because why wouldn't you? The alcohol wears off. You want another beer. It's only a few bucks, and it's a big fucking
Yeah.
ugly can. And everyone, yeah, of course. And there's a cute girl. Like it's a perfect recipe to drink.
Oh, exactly. Well, no, and I think what you said is like it's the chase, right? Because you remember that one time that you had such a great time drinking, and oh, me and my friends, we had this time, and oh, we played and we whatever. And so then you drink again. You're like, okay, tonight's going to be the same like that. What was the key thing? Drinking, drinking, drinking.
For you, was that in Minneapolis, or was that when you were like a teenager in the rural areas of Minnesota?
No, no, I didn't drink in the rural town because I knew if I started drinking there, I would stay there.
Ah, very smart.
So I was
Uh,
like, I just want to get out of college and then I'll go get a job. And then I was like, oh, this is how you make friends, and this is fun. Drinking is fun, you know. I remember like people would play drinking games. And I'm like, why are you need to lose or win to drink? I'm just gonna keep drinking, and that's fine.
how old is your daughter?
She's 12.
And you have two daughters, or a daughter and a son?
A son and a daughter. Yeah, my son's 15, and then my daughter's 12.
And they're in Helsinki?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have an ex-wife.
And I have an ex-wife.
Do they go back and forth?
Yeah, they go back and forth. They just live in the next building over, so it makes it pretty easy.
Does she know that her father is talking about suicide?
Probably not right now, no.
Did she know about her father's struggles?
Yes, very much so.
She's 12, so the son is 15.
My son is 15.
Does he know?
Oh, yeah, 100%. That's kind of this crux of how everything kind of boiled up, really.
How old are you?
I'm 45.
Oh, you look young.
Ah, thanks, dude.
So how do you meet your wife, your ex-wife?
A German bar in Minneapolis,
I love it.
basement of a German bar. You get a beer in a liter, so that's
Yeah.
where me and my buddy would go, drink beer by the liter, and then they'd have polka dancing, and after 3 or 4 liters of beer, I thought I could dance. And so, yeah, I danced with her, and
Boom.
I had a Sharpie, right? Because then this was before there were cell phones and stuff. So instead of exchanging numbers on paper, I had a Sharpie. And so if she wanted my number, so I wrote my number across her arm,
Love it.
and she gave me hers, but she didn't write her name. So she said, if you remember my name, then I'll go out with you.
And now she lives in the next building in Helsinki.
Yeah, it doesn't talk to me.
Doesn't talk to you. Okay. And you created two children,
We did.
which is crazy. Not the fact that you had children, the fact that you can have sex and a human being comes out of somebody's body.
Yeah, yeah, it's a miracle.
Please, someone explain that. And I don't need the like evolutionary, reproductive, biological shit. I mean, come on. Come on.
Well, yeah, yeah, if you think about it, then you see these people walking around. It's like, wow, you were just an idea, and then we're like, let's start to create this thing, and
Crazy.
then it worked. Then you get lucky and it works out, and then you're all the excitement and the pregnancy and the way that the woman's body changes, and that was a fun experience.
So when in this whole 45 years of life do you start to think about ending your life?
Like seriously. So yeah, so I mean it got the worst. It was, what was it, like 2019,
When did you split from your wife?
about that time.
Is it related?
Yes, of course. It's not related in like a cause and effect kind of thing. It's just more like all these things kind of bubble up, right? And so yeah, so like we're here in Finland, everything's going pretty good. I'm working, she's working, but then our son starts to have some issues himself. And so he would be screaming, and he's what? He's like 10, and he starts to want to kill himself. He starts screaming, and he starts like holding knives to his wrists, just asking him to go to bed.
Mm.
And this goes on for a while. And so I start to get really, really scared. I mean, there's times where I recall like coming home and like not knowing, opening the door and like not knowing what I would come into.
Hmm.
And then just like I remember preparing myself to be like, okay, my son might kill himself. So that was what was very difficult for me, trying to be there for him at that time, and then starting to get into trying to get him help.
Did he get help?
We're still in that process. It's tough to explain my own suicidal ideations, and really, the times when I was, kind of the attempts that I had, without like explaining that, because it's not cause and effect, but that's what was happening at the time.
Sure. Of course.
You
It
know.
has of course. Up until 40, I'm imagining everything's not just perfectly great. Of course, you're living and life is hard, but you don't think about ending your life up until about that time.
No, not in any serious way. I think that was when, I'm like I'm achieving things, getting married, having kids, having great jobs, and then I think any sort of depression or anything like that was covered by drinking.
Do you have any idea at 10 years old when this seemingly started, like what was going on with your son?
I
Hmm.
mean, honestly, no. Like looking back, I'm not sure. So yeah, we got into therapy. I remember we did like, okay, let's look at his timeline of his life. He was born in Minnesota. We moved to Colorado when he was 1 years old, and then we moved to Finland when he was like 6 or 7, I think, the first time. And then we moved back to the States, and then we came back to Finland. So it's like, did he move around too much? When he was having those episodes, the things that he would be saying hit me so deeply because they are things that I felt my whole life.
Mm,
You know, he just doesn't want to be alive, or he's some of the hardest things were when it seemed it was directed at me also. He didn't say these things about his mother.
mm.
Like I hate my life because you're my dad. I want to die because you're my dad.
Oh,
And I mean now, that's what was very, very difficult for me to hear,
yeah.
obviously, and so like it got so bad that I took him to the emergency room, just to kind of calm him down because it's like I don't know what else to do. He's screaming for 3 hours,
Wow. Yeah.
just he won't go to bed, and yeah, I remember the knives. I remember he locked himself in the bathroom. He's like, I'm gonna eat all the medicine in here. It's like, okay, so yeah, dealing with that, and then just like the communication issues with me and my wife just got magnified. That's my perspective. Obviously, there's two sides to every story. But yeah, so then I remember we got him into therapy, and then he went to like a children's ward hospital for like a week. And I remember that being like the lowest point of my life. Like I was like, how could I have let this happen? I beat myself up a lot that I couldn't be there for him.
I'm gonna guess that you still do.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that happened, he's doing good. He plays a lot of video games now. I'd like it if he was a bit more active, but still, like, I'm like, is he happy?
Yeah.
What can I do for him? But yeah,
You think you're a good dad?
I do my best. I used to think I was a good dad. Other people say I'm a good dad, so I do try to listen to them.
Hit your kids' voices have the most weight, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, 100%. And it's tough, like I've been through therapy. I do all these spiritual practices, to really come into my body, to find the feeling in my body, where does it feel like when anger comes or loneliness, and how can you really go through life? I've studied like this non-duality idea, where there's no separation between mind body, it's just one, and everything that we experience is really only happening for no one, right? It's just this grand play that we have. All this stuff. But if my son says something, everything goes out the window.
What about your daughter? Is she experiencing life a little differently?
She's experiencing life a little differently. Yeah. She has not, she hasn't shown any of this kind of stuff, but also she's very, very quiet, which
Hmm.
also kind of concerns me. But I just encourage her to be herself as much as she can. And she is wonderful and amazing, as my son is. He's also wonderful and amazing. But, then the teenage years kind of take over, and
They live with both of you, or they live with their mom and hang out with you sometimes.
it's almost 50-50.
So, 2019, ideating either starts or gets more, gets bigger, stronger.
It's bigger. Yeah.
Take us from how many suicide attempts do you have?
I would say two big ones.
Is there such a thing as a small one?
No, no, you're right.
It's fascinating to me that people downplay their attempts. I get it, and that's certainly no judgment, but they're like, but I get it.
I
Like if you took a gun and tried to shoot yourself versus maybe I took a few too many pills, those are different. I get it for sure.
I think for me too, like listening to your show has really helped me kind of accept that in my life too, that they weren't little things. I try to downplay these things, but like the mental state I was in and the actions that I took, though that was, I fully intended to end my life.
Well, you've heard the podcast, you know that we talk about those attempts. So do you want to do that?
Sure.
So what was the first one? Do you remember when it was and whether it's what happened that day or sort of leading up to that?
It was 2020,
COVID.
right? And so, yeah, COVID, exactly. There's like this string of things that just, the issues with my son. There was a very close death in my family. It was just too much to deal with. I was getting some stuff from my ex's house, from my ex's apartment because I'd moved out. Then I was just like, I just want to not be here anymore. I had a bag of stuff, and I dropped it in front of her place, and I texted her. I'm like, I don't need this anymore because I don't want to be alive. I think I had sleeping pills, I had a
Hmm.
bunch of pills, and I had a bottle of alcohol. And so then I was like, I just told her I'm going to go kill myself.
Why did you tell her?
If I have to think about it now, probably to just to let her know, probably to cause pain,
Sure.
maybe to as a call for help. That was that day, and I was not able to deal with like what my life would look like not being married, not being with the kids
Mm,
every day. So I think I told her that, and I got on the metro to go to my place, and she followed me, and I was out of my mind. I was out of my mind. I had everything in my bag. I had all these pills. I was just going to take these pills. I was on depression medication. Also had medication to help me sleep. So I was just going to take all those, and I had like a bottle of alcohol. I don't know if it was whiskey or whatever it was, but I knew a place in the woods that I was going to do it because I had been thinking about it for a while.
oh, so hang on. When you're on the metro, and this is in Helsinki,
This is in Helsinki. Yeah,
you're on a metro, your wife is on like, oh, like in the same train or no?
I think she was in the same train. Yeah,
And you're
yeah.
thinking you're not going to go to wherever you had just moved to. You're going to go to the woods somewhere.
The woods were near. I mean, in Helsinki, you can get to the forest anywhere. So I knew there was this place like in this park and kind of in this wooded area. Then that's where I was going to go because I had walked through there before and I had thought of it doing it there.
How long had you been thinking about it? Because you just said you walked through there and thought it might be a good place. Is this weeks or months?
Probably months. Probably months.
That's a
So
long
thinking,
time to be thinking about ending your life and just still surviving, I think.
yeah, yeah. I mean, because it was, yeah, like I said, it was COVID. It was these things that I had done to hurt her.
Mm,
Things where I drank too much and did things, where I felt horrible guilt from.
yeah.
And I didn't know how I could ever reconcile with her or anything like that, or reconcile with the kids. And so I was like, yeah, I don't see a way forward. And so yeah, so I was by myself in this apartment. I had a flatmate, and actually it was we became very good friends. I'm still friends with him. But yeah, I would go down to the sea. I'd sit by the sea and just think of how much would I need to drink to be able to just walk into the sea
A
and not
lot.
care. Yeah, and just go, you know.
It's not a good way to die, Nick.
No, no, that's why I never did it. Then I started doing the research, like what's the easiest way to do it, and things like this.
Because it's almost impossible to drown yourself. You probably know that.
Yeah, yeah, but I figured enough sleeping pills and enough booze, it would be okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then even if you somehow wanted to not die, it's probably too late
Yeah, that's true.
because you're like far out and it's fucking ocean. And what the fuck? We're not dolphins.
This is the part I love about your podcast. You're very logical. I've heard that too, like other people, they're like, this is how I was gonna do it. It's like, well, that doesn't make sense.
Because we talk about everything, I feel like there's space to talk about that stuff as well, right? I'm not
Yeah.
hopefully, yeah. So do you get to the woods that day?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
Drink?
she'd followed me the whole way too. And I think then at that point she's calling I think she called my mom, I think. But then I know she got a hold of one of my good friends. And then I talked to him and he was just like, yeah, I forget what he said. I can picture where I was in the forest at the time and stuff, and
Yeah.
she was there. And so I talked to him and he was like, yeah, this isn't whatever he said brought me back.
So you didn't drink or take the pills at that point.
No, no, I didn't.
Did he say something that because I'm very and I'm curious about a lot of this stuff, but
Sure.
how people deal with other people, engage with them, talk with them, and the difference it could make. Now, I don't know if he had any magical words, but did he say something that did make a difference, or was it just a buddy showing support?
I think it was just a buddy showing support, because I think it was like I had been probably alone that day myself, decided to go pick up some stuff from her and then just her and then seeing our old place and like, okay, I'm never going to be able to come back here. And like my idea of time was very immediate. I noticed that. And I still notice that a bit. Like it's tough for me to kind of get perspective sometimes. And so it's like, okay, there's nothing past today, and all I've caused is pain, and I'm a burden on all these people. And, with my drinking and all that stuff, that's just going to be a burden on my kids. So I should just end this all so they can be happy. And so, yeah, so then when I talked, I think, as I think of it, just to hear my friend's voice and just to hear him be like, I don't think there were any magic words that I can remember.
Right.
I might have written them down at some time, but I do credit him for really helping me out, and I still thank him for it every once in a while.
That's cool. Really cool. I mean, by the way, when I say magic words, what I mean is like basic empathy or listening or, it's not magic, but
No,
it can
that's
feel magical because we don't get it very often.
no, that's exactly what it was. I mean, he was very empathetic, and I could hear that he was just there, and yeah. So that was that, and I think then she called the ambulance, and so the police and the ambulance were there and kind of checked me out. So I mean, like for me, like I'd been listening to your podcast for a while, and I was like, I appreciate it, and then I remember, yeah, whatever that night was. I mean, well, I sent it at almost 3 in the morning,
You're
and
looking at the original email right now on your other monitor because you're a fancy tech punk.
not that fancy. Come on,
It's pretty
everybody,
fucking fancy, bro.
go get it. Go get it. How do you not have two monitors? Go get a monitor. I mean, it's
Yeah, I
all on the
don't
internet.
need 17 fucking monitors because I don't work for the NSA.
That sounds like a different podcast altogether. Yeah, but no,
um,
I mean, I think at the time I was having panic attacks a lot.
Fucking hell.
Just those things where I'm like, okay, shit, I'm gonna die. I might feel my body dying.
Yeah.
And so I think when I sent that email, that was the situation. I don't know if I said anything about the day, but yeah, I mean, that day must have been just a tough day where I was beating myself up over maybe something, not being able to give my kids the life I want to give them. Right now, I'm in a two-bedroom apartment. My kids have each room, and I'm in the living room.
You sleep in the couch?
I put my bed here. I'm a grown man almost.
Right.
But like that, and then to look at my life now, and let's say when I was in the US, I had a 5 bedroom house,
You did?
and I had a backyard and all this stuff. Sure.
All right. Well, all right. So that's interesting. So to go from being quite comfortable, or that sort of tangibly even, and hey,
Yeah.
all that stuff. So you downsized considerably, and I don't know, is there a status thing connected to that?
Not a status, more of just like, for one thing that I do concern myself with is like, when I was a teenager, there was basements to go to, there was places to hang out.
You met your wife in one of them.
I've met my wife in a basement.
A great bar, a basement, some beer, and a Sharpie. Polka dancing. Are you kidding me?
Look at it. No. Yeah.
Fucking kidding me? Weird question. It's the kind
Yeah.
of question I don't think I've ever asked so directly. If you could go back to the night in the basement, polka dancing in the Sharpie, would you give her your number?
I knew this one was probably coming.
Really? Because I
Oh,
don't think I ask this question very often.
I don't know, man. Time is weird, right? That was what? That was fucking 24 years ago?
It's the source of many a movie, right? Or even maybe a
Right.
book
All right.
where it's like, well, if this doesn't happen, then, if.
Right. What if I didn't say yes and then yeah, because we got together and then she was in this situation and I needed to move out of my apartment, but she was going to buy a house and then we moved in together and we were both wanted to move out of the state and move out of the
Yeah,
country and so
yeah,
those adventures came together. So we had amazing adventures, that's for sure. We have two amazing kids. We
yeah.
moved internationally and now my kids are bilingual, which was one of the things that we wanted together, like I remember before we had kids, before we got married, it's like, what do you want? It's like, well, it'd be cool to have bilingual kids and to live internationally at some point in our life. Still, that's still happening. So the universe flowed the way that it would flow. Those things happen. If I hadn't given her my number, I'd probably end up with somebody very similar to her because that's how life goes, is in patterns until you learn that lesson, right?
Maybe so. Just something about Finland I can't wrap my head around.
Dude, it's a weird place.
I love the flag though. So simple, blue and white. So when the cops come and whomever else, and this is back in 2020,
Mhm.
do they just have a chat with you or how does it work there? Or how did it work then?
Yeah, they just had a chat with me because I think my ex was so just she couldn't handle it, and that's how I see it too. I mean, that was a lot to put on her, and that wasn't fair. And obviously, if it was for me just to because I didn't know how to process it myself, to really think I didn't want to be here anymore. And how do you explain that to somebody? So the police came. They asked if I was okay. They asked it to be okay if I just went into my apartment and if I could just relax for the day. And if I needed any help, they gave me a number and things like this. And I think the police, the cop was very, very nice too, because he was telling me, because I told him my whole story, my son's going to kill himself. I don't know what he's going to do. He's depressed. I'm afraid he's going to kill himself. I'm a burden to him. I can't help him. Disappointed in my wife. I've disappointed in my marriage. Everything's fallen apart. And I remember, yeah, once again, my friend was nice that day and empathetic, and that policeman was really nice and empathetic. And so yeah, they just let me go. I just went into my apartment. To her credit, my ex did come over later that afternoon and just check on me if I needed anything. But yeah, I think I watched a lot of the like Avengers movies a lot. Those are the ones I watched over and over.
2020, and when's attempt number two? Big attempt, as you say.
Well, this one was more of just a really scary day. Let's see, because I do have kind of a timeline of my stuff,
Oh,
right? Yeah, I had to write it down because there was a lot of things happening.
I should ask people to send me their timeline.
Dude, I have a timeline and then I have it like categorized of what it was, and then I have a column like if it was a trauma piece.
That tells me a lot about you, Nick. The fact that you take such time and categorize it, and you probably use Excel very well. I just know it.
Well, you use Google Docs now because it's easier to use and free and you can share things.
Google Sheets.
Of course. The first one was the beginning of 2020, and then the second one was in the autumn, September 2020.
Just after I started this podcast, Nick.
Really?
Yep, I started in July of 2020.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, just right after that, like once again, I that was the only time I rode in an ambulance as like in the back of the ambulance. So my son was a part of this, like it was supposed to be family help, right? And so they'd have these days out,
Mm.
and so we would go as a family. And this is a part of just like the horrible, like we were mistreated in the system and stuff here. Because like we would go, like they said, okay, it's a family help to kind of bring peace and bring you guys together. But they were just these outings that these contracts with these contractors from social services would take kids out.
Hmm.
The first one I went there to, I'm like, great, let's do this. Hey, show the kids some fun things. And I get there, we're the only whole family. Otherwise, it's just like single kids, maybe two other parents. So I'm like, oh, these kids have different problems altogether. They don't have a family unit. And so the woman who was running that, I have a lot of problems with. But anyways, this day I met my kids and my ex, and we were walking to this island where we were going to meet up with the family help. My son didn't want to go. He's kind of dragging his feet. He sits down on a park bench, and I'm like, Bud, come on, let's go. It's this island. It's cool. It's got sheep on it. It's called Lamasari, so Sheep Island. Sits on the park bench. I'm like, dude, you got to come. And he starts yelling at me. And I go to my ex. I'm like, can we get him to go? Let's go. She says, well, we got to let him take his time. I forget exactly, but what sparked it was he gets up and he starts throwing rocks at me and just saying that he wishes I was dead and I would kill myself. So I'm like, perfect, I will. And I blow up screaming, I'm going to kill myself. I will. I'm going to do it, because I want to make him happy, right?
Mm.
I want to give him anything he wants. And by this time, he's told me this enough where I'm like, maybe he's right. Maybe that will make him happy. Maybe that will solve his things. Whatever makes him sad, maybe I should kill myself. And so I run. I'm like, fine, I'm gonna go. And I take off. And it's in this park, and it's a public park. I mean, I think it was maybe like a Saturday or Sunday morning, right? And I'm screaming like a crazy person because not crazy, but just disrupted. I mean, and I've been having panic attacks and depression. And in between this time, too, at my apartment, I had a plastic bag I would try on my head every couple days just to kind of see how it would feel.
So, kind of like when you walk through the woods and you thought about it, like there's some internal prepping in a sense.
Exactly. Yeah, I had a plan. Like I was like, okay, I'm not gonna, I'll kill myself after this happens. I'll kill myself after this happens. I'll wait for my birthday. You know?
Right. This is the reason to live until then, but no more.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so for me, like too, I'm like, okay, but this is part of if that will keep me alive for a little bit, then I'll do that. So then
Mm.
I won't think about killing myself for a couple months until whatever comes. So yeah, that was in between. So at this time, like, my son throwing rocks at me and telling me to kill myself, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll go grab my bag. I'm
Mm.
ready. So yeah, so then I was just just livid. And once again, my friend, the same friend who called before, calls me again. He's like, what's going on?
Mm.
I'm like, dude, this is what happened. He's like, okay, I understand that, but this isn't, I forget what he said, but once again, just very empathetic, very chill, very calm. I trust him 100%. So I listened to him. By this time, and I did this in front of both my kids.
No.
I'm going to kill myself. I'll kill myself. I will give you what you want. If this is what you want, and I'll be out of here so you guys can live your life without me because I felt so rejected through the divorce and through all these other things. And, this was probably still during COVID. So I'm not sure where the world is going,
Yeah.
you know? And yeah, with depression and stuff like that, it's just, yeah, not having panic attacks, spending time trying with a bag over my head, like, okay, how does this work? Anyways, so luckily, listening to my friend, he said to go and find the ambulance because my ex had once again called the police and the ambulance was there. So they were like, yeah, you need to come with us. And I was like, I prefer not to. But I think at that time, Now my ex had taken the kids and they were gone, so it was just me and these ambulance people. So yeah, so I got in the ambulance and they took me to the hospital, and I just talked to somebody. And once again, I told them at this point there had been the ambulance ride, and I'm like, okay, shit, this isn't a good day. That wasn't a good thing, And I was so inside myself, like it's yeah, like I said, it's tough to hear my beautiful son throwing rocks at me and telling me I should kill myself. But I explained it to the person there, and they're like, "Yeah, you're okay to go. There's nothing we can do. We can't keep you here or anything." And I'm like, "Okay." And so I didn't know what else to do with my day that day, but luckily I play Australian football. So we were having an Australian football game later that day. So luckily I had a thing to go take my mind off what had happened earlier that morning. But when I got there, I told another friend what exactly had happened that morning, and he just like gave me a big hug, and he's like, "Okay, I'm here. Let's do this, and let's
Let's
keep
go
going."
rough some motherfuckers up. You fucking punk. That's awesome. Fucking Australian rules football is not for the soft or the tame.
No, yeah, you can get tackled pretty hard.
Yeah. So those were the big attempt. What did you mean by big as opposed to not big? Because it sound when you say big, there's other stuff happening in this time or in between the spaces or after.
I mean, looking back, it was a lot of the ideation, and I remember it was just that sadness and the aloneness, and it's the those were the big pieces that stick out in my memory now. But it is just those days of having enough. I'd always have enough sleeping pills because I would up the prescriptions and I would go ask for more, and I'd up the prescription so I had enough if I really wanted to do something. Or I remember I bought this pillow, and yeah, it was like this nice heavy plastic bag, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna save this because this would be a
Yeah.
good way to suffocate myself.
Hmm.
And so thinking, saying this stuff now, I don't think I've probably ever described it like this, but those aren't healthy ways to live. And if those
Yeah.
and that was on my mind most of the time,
Yeah.
that's what was in the back of my, or not even the back of my head, like right in the front of my head, and me then trying to work and navigate COVID and then spend some time with my kids in this. Well, I had a room, I had one room in an apartment, two bedroom, or it was a one bedroom apartment. My flatmate had the living room, I had the bedroom. And so
Hmm.
when my kids would come over, we'd stay in one room. And so that was a huge hit to my ego,
Yeah.
obviously. And so I've been trying to crawl out of that space. But
The ideator's mind. I don't know if that's an actual title of anything, but I feel like that's what, among other things, what you shared about. Some people see a bag and it's just a bag. They put shit in it. Maybe eventually they toss it. But other people sometimes think, how would that fit over my head in a way that would kill me?
yep. I remember it's like, oh, because this is thick. This is thick. This is nice. The way it opened, I can tighten it, and then I could put a zip tie on there, and then I couldn't get off of it.
Another shitty way to die, Nick.
I know.
You're really picking shitty ways to die.
Didn't want to make it easy, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I did all that research. I remember Googling things like how, easiest way to die. Well, how do you kill yourself? And I'm like, if I'm doing this, I should probably get some help.
Did you get some help?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was also a part of kind of the child custody stuff was not super nice
Uh-huh.
with my son's issues, and so a lot of it was a lot of it was pointed at me. And also here in Finland, if you're a man, that means you're probably an alcoholic, which I was told in one meeting. And so then they're like, you need to get therapy, and I was like, okay. And so yeah, so then I did get therapy, and I was in therapy for two years, and then that's when they gave me, what was I on first? I was on Brintalex. I was on Brintalex starting in 2019, and that never agreed with me because that fogged up my mind. I couldn't think straight. And also, one of the side effects of Brintalex is higher suicidal ideation,
Wait a second. What's Brintalex used for primarily?
depression.
So wait, you're saying a depression medication is more likely to lead to suicidal ideation?
Yeah, that's one of the side effects.
I understand that it's being labeled as a side effect by a pharmaceutical company or somebody else in a governmental body, but can you see why I'm wondering what that seems really weird?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I was like, I don't want that. What can I do? Can I meditate? Is there breathing techniques? All this stuff. When I started with my therapist, she's like, if we're doing therapy, you need to be on a depression medication. I'm like, okay, fine. I'm like, but how do you know which one's right for you?
Yeah.
Because I know there's side effects. And so, I mean, really, with that, I do attribute the medication a lot to my peaks of those two incidents I just talked about. And so after that second one, I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to get off this fucking medication. And so I did. And so they're like, well, we'll switch you to this what's it called? Escitalopram or something. So Lexapro. Then I was on Lexapro.
Okay. Better than Lexa Amateur.
Oh, Lexa Amateur. You're quick.
It's not going to make the final version.
Yeah, probably not.
No way. Not a chance. So as you're looking at these notes, 2020, so you're going through, you're getting therapy, but in January, you sent me an email. You were ideating pretty heavily. And since then, until the moment we're sitting here right now, are you ideating a lot?
No, no, maybe not in the past couple months.
Okay. Did anything change?
Not really, no. Beginning of this year, I've done some great things with my kids. My daughter wanted to go to Paris. And actually, before maybe middle of last year, I think I was probably ideating a lot. And I was like, well, I can't kill myself until I take her to Paris.
It's a fucking movie right there, man. Seriously.
Yeah, dude.
Did you have a good time?
Oh, it's amazing. Have you ever been?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, no, she's wanted to go to Paris for like maybe 2, 3 years. And I'm like, because she watches this cartoon that takes place in Paris. And I'm like, yeah, let's go. And so I planned it and we went up the Eiffel Tower on Christmas Day and we were
Yeah.
there at dusk. So we went up, the sun went down and then all the lights went on in the tower. So it was pretty magical.
How long were you in Paris with her?
Well, it was me and my son and my daughter. And I think we were there for 5 days. And so we went and did Disney and we went and did the Eiffel Tower. We walked around and all this fun stuff.
That's amazing, man. Maybe you saw my ex-girlfriend. She's French.
Oh, really? Ooh la la.
Yeah, she's married with a bald guy and a son now. So she apparently has a type. Different podcast. So that's very cool.
Now that I say that, it's like, no, definitely last year I was still pretty ideating pretty hard. And I was like, no, I can't do this until she goes to Paris.
Think weather has a role in this? Cold weather there has any impact on all this?
The darkness of the winter, for sure.
Darkness, maybe even more, right? More.
It's the darkness that gets to me. That gets to everybody. I mean, that's proven here. Finland is always rated as one of the happiest places in the world, right? It's also high suicide rates because of the darkness. And also there's huge alcohol consumption here, huge drinking. They get rated the happiest because, the bottom that are sad, they're the ones who kill themselves. So
Yeah, those are
everything up.
fucking really dumb polls or they're just magazine articles for people to click. It's dumb. I know they're real, but you can't measure happiness.
Well, I think it's
Maybe-
based on like things that are easy, right? So like here, like ever since my kids were young, they can go out to the park. I don't have to worry about them getting hurt. There's not going to be any violence or anything against them. Things are available for everybody. Everything's pretty like even, but there's also downsides to that too. So
In the winter, yeah, it would be winter, right? Northern hemisphere. How dark does it get how early does it start getting dark?
during like the deepest part of winter, there's maybe like dusk for 2 hours, and that's about as light as it gets.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Do they have big spotlights on the fucking streets or something?
There are yeah, lights around, and then there's a lot of indoor sporting places, so people go try to play a lot of sports. You get these like these whatever they call them, the lights that are kind of wake you up to the sun or whatever.
Like with the ones they use in torture chambers?
Probably like that, yeah. But yeah, no, that's about how it gets here. So it gets really dark and gray, and if there's snow, it's a little bit lighter. But then if there's no snow, it's just like the streets are black and everybody's wearing black and gray and white.
Drinking, and they're drinking. And carousing and eating pickled herring or whatever you guys eat.
Yeah, no, pickled herring. That's right. Yeah, there's a herring festival every year.
That's amazing. Really.
Oh, thanks, dude.
That's a herring. Just say the word a few times. I feel better. If I asked you when you were 12, 22, or 32 that when you were 40, you would try to end your life, would you be like, no chance?
No, that would have made sense. Yeah. No, I never thought I'd live to be this old.
We didn't talk about this.
No.
How does this not come? But Nick, so you never thought you would make it to 40 plus?
No, not really. I don't think it was like a hard thing, but like I couldn't imagine, things going. I don't know. I'm pretty a reckless kind of person, but also too, I think I always kind of knew that there was that inside of me. I think I even would joke too, during like my midlife crisis or, when I was suicidal, back in my 30s and, back in my 20s, I'd probably joked about shit like that. So yeah, if you would ask me at, what did you say, 12, 18, and 22?
You random years, yeah.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, sure, that makes sense.
Did I ask you why you actually wanted to talk with me? I know why you found how you found the podcast.
I really respected the other people, the other people on your podcast for sharing their stories. And I think it helped me through a lot of dark times. And then in January, when I felt not so great again, I was like, well, I fucking tried everything else. I've done therapy. Why don't I go on this podcast? Or why don't I reach out to you to talk to you and see what this experience is like? I mean, everybody has their story, like when I've listened to your podcast, it's like, yeah, people have divorce in their life, or there's a breakup of something, or somebody dies and shit like that. So I'm like, yeah, I've had that too. Those are my same patterns. So just sharing my experience and yeah, just to put it out there, I guess.
I appreciate it. What else helps you feel less shitty or less alone or maybe good?
I'm also a professional wrestler.
What do you mean?
I've
Like
been,
currently?
yeah, currently, yeah. I picked that up about 3 years ago, and so that's really also helped me through a lot of things.
No, this is real. You're being real here. Serious.
Yeah, I'm being real. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What's your
Yeah.
stage name?
It's just my name.
That's fucking boring. What do you mean it's just your name?
Well, I'm an American with a Finnish name, and I never planned on getting into wrestling, so I didn't have a character, so it's just me.
Things are getting weird.
Thanks.
I'm just intrigued by that whole world, but okay. So in Finland, Nick from Minnesota is a professional wrestler.
Like for me, obviously, I never thought, well, like you said, if you would have talked to me at 12 and said when you're in your 40s, do you think you would have killed yourself or been suicidal? That would have made sense to me. But if you'd have said, do you think you would start a professional wrestling career? I would have been like, no, that doesn't make any sense. I'm a little guy. But here I am. And yeah, I've trained in Spain. I've trained in the UK. I've had matches in the UK. I just had a match in Sweden earlier this year.
I should start a new podcast about that shit. Fucking amazing. How
So,
many people know about your 2 attempts?
yeah, most people. I mean, my friend, my ex, my kids. I've told my parents, my brothers know. So yeah, I mean, for me, like from the experience of going through all that stuff, it was me, but it's also just this part of me that happened. It's this sickness, this illness or whatever, right? Well, I wasn't of sound mind, and I was on depression medication, and that attributed to it and things of this nature. So I would rather share my experience than not tell anybody. I don't talk about it too much now, but at the time I definitely was, if anybody would ask, that's what I would talk about.
Suicide's not an uncommon thing in Finland, but is it talked about?
No, not as much as it should be.
When you went to therapy, you still in therapy or you stopped?
I stopped. I'll take the therapy anytime that it's kind of given. I've been in several different types of therapy. I was in like traditional just psychotherapy. I was in a group therapy for a while. It was this what was it called? Like group play therapy where we'd kind of take roles and then you'd act pieces out, right?
Oh, like
Um,
psychodrama?
Psychodrama. Yes, like that. So that was cool. And then like if I get kind of you get this occupational therapy, I'll take like those 3 free sessions or something. So
In all the time, and I imagine this applies more to maybe dealing with, I don't know, whoever it might have been. Did you get a diagnosis? I know you mentioned depression. Any that you think is accurate then or now?
just depression. But I mean, I think like at the time since everything was so intense, like I would be very interested to maybe work again with somebody to see if there's other things going on because I know like I think there's untreated mental health in my family.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, time and place, things happen, back in those, when my parents or their parents were this age, they didn't handle it, right? They would just drink it all away
Drink,
or,
drink, drink, drink.
go do other things. So, I mean, I think that is alive in me. And for me, I can research as much as I can so I can help my children. And so, like, actually, too, the most recent therapy is I took both of my kids to the family therapist. So, me and my son had some sessions. And then since my daughter's been kind of out of it, because it's been so focused on my son, I wanted to get her help too, just to really just to take them to therapy to say, if you ever need this, this is here. This is how you do it. And also too, in those therapy sessions, I said, what happened happened. I am not proud of those things, and they might not come up for you now in your life, but if they ever come up, you can ask me about them. You can ask me why this happened or why were you doing this, because they're 12 and 15, so they're not processing everything. So when they get into their 20s, they're like, oh shit, why was dad so pissed? Or why did this happen? Or why do we live in one bedroom? It's like, come and ask me. That'll be part of your process. So no big deal.
Do you think anybody in your life will actually listen, including you, when this comes out?
I have no idea. I don't know. I'm not going to actively share it because I think like with the details I've given, people kind of figure out, who it is, and that's fine too. But I have shared it out with some people that I know who do suffer from depression and who are
Oh,
suicidal. So I've shared it out with some other friends and stuff like that. Yeah, and I'm going to go meet up with a friend to take a sauna here in a little bit too, and I'll probably tell him about it. So
because it's Finland.
it's Finland. it's a bar sauna.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Just to be clear here, they've combined a bar and a sauna.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
It's a bar, but then you just walk down the corridor. It's a locker room, and there's a sauna.
All right, hang on. This has nothing to do with this podcast. What I need to know is Finland part of the EU?
Yeah,
So if I get EU citizenship or residency, I can go to a bar sauna.
yeah. Of course, you don't even need the citizenship. You can just take a trip and let me know. I'll bring you there. It's right there. I got a punch card. Otherwise, I think it's like 18 euros a time, but I paid punch card, so it's about 10 euros a time. I can get you in.
Wow. Goodbye, United States. Couple more questions and then you'll add whatever you want. You could look at that list, that very organized list in Google Sheets, which I appreciate. As we speak, do you wish that either of those attempts had turned out differently and you were dead?
Yeah, yesterday for sure.
Or you felt like yesterday you wish you weren't alive and it would have been easier if you had died then?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, yesterday was a horrible day. There was a lot of different things that happened that weren't super great, and I had a lot of anxiety. And then, actually, I took my son to a nurse's appointment to check in on his depression, and a lot of those things came back, and I'm like, fuck, what would it have mattered if, would it be better if I wasn't here? That thought ran through my head. I mean,
Yeah.
it's something that I know comes and goes, and so I need to keep learning and exploring myself. The thing that on my best days, I think, yeah, I do this so when it comes up again for my son, as it will in his life, I can be there for him. On my worst days, I'm like, well, shit, it's a physical pain. It is a physical pain. It hurts in your body. You don't
Yeah.
feel good. My brain is fogged. I can't have thoughts. My memory is fucked. My memory is fucked. I don't know if it's from the depression medication or just having depression, but like I don't feel super confident about my memory.
So when you're in the really tough stages, like meaning yesterday, let me just use myself as a quick reference point. I have gotten better at knowing even when it's really bad, oh, it doesn't stay forever. Usually, like it's not going to stay forever. Like in the moment though, it's hard, but I've gotten better in that moment to be like, at night I feel a certain way, but usually when I wake up, I'm a little better.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and even if I wake up and I don't feel better, I know, well, I'll keep going. And maybe one thing that I've been doing, like I talk to my brother back home almost every day, and so like that's helped me. We've always been close, but now we've been quite a bit closer too. And he complains to me about his shit, I complain about my shit, and then he reminds me, hey, even though your shit that stuff isn't going right, there's a lot of other good parts in each of our lives. He's like, yeah, if you would have told me at 20 that you'd be doing this, and I live in Finland and I have a remote job and I do pretty well for myself, I would have said, how the fuck did I get there?
Do you know the pink and purple pill question?
Yes.
Testing you if you've actually heard the fucking podcast, Nick.
I listened to an episode this morning in the bathtub.
Oh, it's fascinating to hear where people listen to it, which makes sense. It's a podcast. I listen in the bathtub. I listen in the car. I listen at Trader Joe's. Pink and purple pill, just so our audience who might be first-time listeners, Nick gets a pill. He takes it, he dies in his sleep, and nobody knows it's a suicide. Though you can change those conditions. You may not add to them, however. People try to do that. There's a reason there's two colors, because it's two ideas. Do you take it, save it, or toss it? I know. I'm so happy I came up with this question. It's one of my best ever.
It is a good question. Today I would save it. Yesterday I would take it. Yeah, it's a thin line, right?
So just to be clear here, you'd said earlier that sometimes you are able to get through the day or the week because you're going to take your daughter to Paris, your children, right? That type of thing?
Yeah, yeah.
But apparently, yesterday, our fucking talk wasn't enough.
Well, I didn't know if it would happen, right?
You would have taken it and missed this goddamn conversation?
Hey, you didn't get back to me on the email, and then you had some problems with your laptop and your phone, man. I don't know. I got priorities. This is fun.
Yeah, I understand.
No, but I mean it's tough. Like I think it's keep on learning, and it's that idea of having that pill, and if you could save it, then it's there. There's this control thing.
And then if you throw it out, you're gonna have to go back to the other methods, and there's
exactly. Oh, so then having it around, I mean, that's a lot more enticing.
Then you have it around and you're going to store it somewhere. By the way, there's a long shelf life. Don't worry about that. But you have to be obviously very careful about where you store it, which is, anyway.
I mean, that's an interesting thing because I had a cousin who died, and I'm not sure if she killed herself or not.
How do we think she died?
She had bipolar, and she was on a lot of medication, and she was a heavy drinker, and there's a lot of other stories around it.
Wow.
But I think it was like something with her heart is what it was. And this was what, May 2020. Her situation and thinking of that and like, shit, maybe she did kill herself. That also contributed to a lot of my issues at that time.
Two more quick questions. Are you on any meds anymore?
No, not anymore. I take sleeping pills every once in a while if I really need them.
Last question, and then you can add anything you want, whether it's on your timeline or not. Any myths or misconceptions you'd like to dispel?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is just, when you're going through that, it's so hard to understand the experience, and just to have somebody who's empathetic, who will sit there with you, and to have somebody that will be there, and to have like that net of people, like in my case, it was my friend who called me. And I mean, I still talk to him, and we're in a WhatsApp group, and we support each other, and we have good men who support each other. But I mean, people don't need to be told what to do. They just need to be listened to.
It really does seem hard. Some people get it right for sure, but a lot don't.
No, exactly. It's like, oh, okay, no, you need to go to the therapist. You need this, you need to do that. It's like, I can't breathe, and my
Right.
body hurts, and I can't think, and I came to you for help, and you're pushing me to somebody else.
100%. You nailed it. You nailed it.
Yeah.
Thing is, some of them probably do care. They just don't know what they're doing or how to do it.
Oh, exactly. I mean, yeah, that would be overwhelming. I mean, like myself, when my son was in that situation, I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I didn't know I tried to be there for him, but then it would get worse, and I'm like, shit. And I mean, even for me, like reaching out to people, and the depression and my issues have, ruined relationships for me since my divorce, like things come up and I don't know how to handle them, and I overshare. It's a difficult thing. It's a difficult situation. The whole seeing depression and mental illness as not identifying it with the person, right? But seeing it as any other medical emergency or medical piece, right? Like there is no one right path to it, right? Like you do whatever feels good for you at the time. Go get help. If it feels like sports are feeling good for you. For me, like, I got into like spiritual stuff, and that helped for a time. Is that the truth? Maybe, then I did go to all the therapists and all the psychotherapy and all that. And then then I look back, it's like, well, then in my 30s and stuff, was it just I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to deal with it, so I was just drinking.
And now it's putting on a leotard and fucking wrestling.
Yeah.
Who says leotard anymore? That's a dated word.
Yeah, you just did. I'd say singlet. It's a wrestling singlet, what I wear. Check out my wrestling on Instagram. It's just my name, Nick_Luukkonen on.
So I'm gonna see like videos of you fucking wrestling?
Yeah, dude.
Come on. All right. I'm rarely on Instagram, so I'm literally going to look right when we get off. What's your record?
I don't know, actually. I know my first win. Oh, and I won my last match. But I mean, it's all about making people have a good time. That's it.
Right. It's entertainment, and that's awesome. You're helping people out. You're doing your thing. And I think you help people by coming here, and people, as you know, they hear it, just like you've been hearing in the bathtub and elsewhere. And now you're one of the people.
Dude, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
What time is it there right now? Was it 8, 9 o'clock?
It's 9 o'clock, yeah.
Fucking dark and...
No, see, now it's getting to summer, so now it'll flip. And then basically it'll only be slightly dusk for 2 hours in the summer.
So that must fuck with your sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. Fucks with your sleep both times. All the time. You get blackout curtains and eye patches and stuff.
You think you're going to stay in Finland for a little while?
For the time being. But last year I was definitely looking to move back to the US. I was doing some job interviews and stuff like that. Yeah, because I mean, my family's there, and I do miss my family. So, but for the time being, I'm here with my kids. Me and my kids are having a good time. So yeah, I mean, at least for this year I'll be here, but I think my job situation might allow me to be a bit more mobile between Finland and the US.
Anything else you want to share with me and, of course, listeners?
No, I think this was great. Yeah, I think what you're doing is great. I think your podcast is really, really helpful. I think the format that you do is just like no bullshit, just straight up doing it your own way. Very punk.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just good to hear other people's stories.
I'll keep doing it, and as long as I'm not dead, and I don't plan on dying anytime real soon, and I don't have a shortage of people reaching out, which probably comes as no surprise. Not an overwhelming amount, but it's a manageable amount. But all right, my friend. Thanks again. I'll be in touch with you soon. And yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. Yeah, have a great day.
All right, Nick, take care. Bye.
Yep, bye.
As always, thanks so much for listening and all of your support. And special thanks to Nick over in Finland. Thank you, Nick. If you are a suicide attempt survivor and you'd like to talk, please reach out. hello@suicidenoted.com. You can find us on Facebook or Twitter/X @suicidenoted. And if you have a few moments and you're curious to learn more about the podcast, check the show notes. And if you have a few moments and would like to help us out, rate and review this podcast Please, it helps people find it. And of course, we want more people to find it. That is all for episode number 217. Stay strong. Do the best you can. I'll talk to you soon.